There we go. Hi, good morning. I just want to thank the ICD-BRAD, you of Nottingham, and also the Canadian Social Science and Humanities Research Council that funded this research. And of course, my two co-authors, Lee Stainer, who's here attending, as well as Mark Chignell, I'm working with in the Department of Engineering. I explained some of the imagery in a bit. I was tempted to put up a picture of Kurt Cobain, but part of this is actually a bit of a story or a narrative beyond just an experiment that looks at a knowledge journey of where we are with a research program and an experiment that has not actually taken place. So it's an open, maybe a bit of a Kafkaesque situation still. So I'll be talking about some basic core concepts that'll come up. The idea of well-being, which arguably is vague, but I think it's an important one. Where of leisure access, immersive VR, something that we're all interested in here. Something that's come up at the conference, but that interests me very much, is the idea of therapeutic meditation. So not just for self-care, but in an actual mental health context. And then basically in terms of looking at designing a concept design using experiential design evaluation with a quick iterative approach. So just to review what the paper is about, we're looking at looking back to the history books, actually sort of very old school, with the idea that there's even a historical medical literature that getting away from it all to the mountain resorts or getting to the seaside seems to be good for people. So that's should be no surprise, but yet it's hard to prescribe, isn't it, as a physician or a mental health professional. To add to this, we're living in a way in another version of industrial revolution where the bourgeoisie middle class is squeezed. People are stressed and anxious and losing their sleep. There's worries, can I afford that vacation to get away from it all? So this is one of the things I think that is a reality that exists outside of our virtual reality that we have to contend with and the sort of the sociological framework. So I'm looking at, in this project, expanding on what we've been doing for the last 5 to 10 years on a VR-based variant of mindfulness-based stress reduction and trying to create this sort of idea of optimal well-being state and ironically working with natural environments that are then synthetically generated in experience. So in this sense, trying to create transformative experiences that give users a sense of calmness, equanimity, well-being, like the sunset on vacation. The sun will ever come out here in Nottingham. So the main question is, how can leisure experiences that enhance well-being, short shrift for quality of life, with some, of course, economic constraints, how can we make this accessible to immersive VR experiences that don't require these often expensive travel to get away to more remote physical environments that seem to be good for body, mind, and spirit? So the idea that I'm working with is that if you actually change the environment that is part of the illness experience, you can actually also change the person because there's an interface between you and the world out there. How can we do this when we're constrained in a place with little affordances to leave? Let's say you're institutionalized or your world has shrunk, you're anxious or depressed. Well, I think that in general, people seem to like leisure because leisure equals perceived freedom. Someone can feel a sense of freedom even if they're locked in a prison cell. It all depends on how much of a zen they can get on. So really the difficulty can be access to leisure. And I'll briefly mention that I see a 2-tier order of leisure for perceived freedom. One is freedom from, I'm locked in a prison right now, and the only thing on my mind is getting out, or I gotta go away on vacation, that's all I can think of. But the other one is freedom to, which I see as a higher order of leisure. When I get out, I'm going to, I don't know, go clean and start a cobbler's store, or when I am going on vacation, maybe I'll learn a thing or two that I can apply to my life to improve it, because I seem to be miserable in it. So these are the two examples of leisure, or I think you see pleasure here. So in the concept development, part of this actually started from my own focus inquiry. I've been in practice as a psychiatrist affiliated with the University of Toronto for about 20 years, In the last couple of years, I've been looking at more holistic approaches, minimizing any invasive approaches, and this is why I'm looking to improve this sort of more meditation approach. And when I ask a lot of patients who aren't feeling well, anxious or depressed, well, when was the last time you seemed to feel good? Well, when I was on vacation. Oh, that's nice. How are you feeling? Oh, well, I feel terrible again. I'm back on my job in my cubicle with my crappy boss and my employee, my co-workers. So a lot of the benefits of leisure and well-being quickly fizzle without, well, people use things, as I see at the bottom, mementos, souvenirs, photographs, to refresh that, to get a little bit of an extra fix of this leisure experience. And just to illustrate what I started doing with patients, I'll do a little brief experiment with you. So if you're willing and able, close your eyes for a second and imagine a happy place, is what I would say to you. A place that makes you feel safe, calm, relaxed, free, and happy. And let that place crystallize in your mind's eye until you can feel it, see it, taste it, smell it. You're there. So think about where you are right now. You can open your eyes again. Everybody has your own happy place, but there's some archetypes that are more common. One of the ones I picked up on was nature environments like tropical islands, mountains, forests. So this is really where we started working with this concept. The reference to the roller coaster pattern, again, is very quickly after the thrill of vacation, there's a decline again, without some sort of, perhaps a maintenance therapy of, if this seems to work, why not find a way to bring it on a more maintenance level? So really this is the goal of taking people from the ghetto to the meadow. And the reason I like this metaphor, the conference that I spoke about this last was the conference on presence in Prague, and I became interested in some of the work of Franz Kafka, who was a very eminent author, however, in a way a quintessential squeezed bourgeoisie, very anxious, worried about many things, died an untimely early death of, I think, tuberculosis. He really didn't have a chance to get out, trapped in the ghetto. On contrast, on the right, we see Robin Hood. Here, someone who's able to sort of find a arguably mythological world in the forest. Everything's good and happy. So the two contrasting heroes, anti-heroes, and that's really what we're trying to do, is transform people. And a little shot on the bottom right of where we went. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but basically a lot of this is born from my own research background working with sleep disorders and stages of sleep. You can see on the left the typical stages of sleep. We're not just an on-off button, but we have roving brain waves consisting of rapid eye movement sleep, deep sleep, and so on. And a couple of years ago at the previous President's Conference, I proposed, given the fact that we have these three discrete stages of organic consciousness, we're increasingly injecting a fourth state of synthetic consciousness. And this is something that we, as people in the developed world have to contend with, will occupy part of our mind. So why not get right from the start? So at this meeting we were talking a little bit about the changes in brain waves, also over time and age. Very brief crash course in neurophysiology. You can see at the top beta brain waves are very relatively quick moving brain waves. These are the things that we experience when we're running for a bus, or many people experience this state of mind chronically, people who are chronically anxious. Alpha brainwaves are more a calm, relaxed state of mind. The analogy I give to patients, if you were in a biathlon, and you had to ski as fast as you can, and you had to see the target, stop, aim, and shoot. It's better to be calm than to be all shaky and nervous. So this is a better way, and probably more efficient way to live your life. Theta brainwaves are more for reverie and dreaming, and this is sort of on the way to sleep brainwaves. So this work ultimately led to work with this meditation program. The previous one I've been using is essentially a light and sound program, and I've been able to use it for the last few years, fortunately at the right place at the right time, because there's a more of an acceptance of meditation in mainstream mental health care. So in other words, it's no longer a bizarro idea for a VR-based meditation to be included in a standardized mental health program. So we're now, we've been using this approach, which is quite protocol-driven, for the last 5+ years, and looking to move beyond standard adults also to perhaps other populations in need, perhaps the elderly or other institutionalized individuals. So this is essentially the time course of what's been a 3-year project. So the most exciting part was last summer. It took us to the Swiss Alps for a grant called Windows to the World. And when we were there, essentially was based on a premise looking at historical research that these magic mountains are a place that people feel good, they're used for convalescence, so why not recreate this magic on a more virtual, immersive level. So these were actually 3 locations we were at, 2 in the Swiss Alps, 1 on the Swiss-Austrian border. And just now that we're moving into the actual technique of the methodology, I remind anybody doing field work, unlike starting from CGI and programming, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're in the field. This is actually at the Castle Raid Circle over the weekend on the way here. And for example, too much bright light, if you have too much sun, which is a favorable thing, can cause some blurring of other, let's say, cloud detail. We've had batteries fail, we've had a variety of things go wrong, so it's always important to have enough time to film these things. And also, of course, this is a little bit of a, not a garage band project, but it's a homemade specialized rig. So I think that now we're moving into possibly more expensive purpose-built camera designs. So this is essentially the nature of the project. We were able to capture 3D images using the camera. We then were able to use an audio program in which we used composition of classical music that roughly corresponded with brainwave states of alpha or theta music instead of oscillated to create an immersive experience. 2 experiments that will follow now, one in brief in which we'll simply be looking at people with a significant anxiety distress score, the Beck anxiety score, and we'll be looking in situations of different presentation, whether there is a significant relief of well-being. I think the beauty of our approach that I like is that there's not a lot of walking around, so we're circumventing the whole thing of simulated sickness, people falling on their feet, because there's a liability issue as well. People need a time out. I think this is a very, very humane and helpful approach. There's a bunch of questionnaires that we look at and also try to exclude people who might actually have a potential altered state effect. I've never so far experienced a patient who's had hallucinations after these actually quite immersive experiences. Second question we're looking at is the aesthetics. So really, a very interesting question to us is, if you have the real virtual reality, which is just the naturescape, versus using polarization effects, which would be the second tier. The third one, which would include motion effects and vague, misty graphics. The fourth one, which would be more in-your-face animation. So we don't know yet at this point what users prefer, what kind of aesthetic. I was brought up that one should never argue good taste, but I think I'm interested in getting a sense of, is there a preference in these 4 spectrums of worlds? So then on top of that, we'll be looking at some subjective feedback. Ultimately, the really interesting question to us is, when you emerge from this experience, are you actually feeling more productive? Because we're living in a world that demands productivity, and I think that this is the way we can hit the nail on the head, both for helping people with mental health and helping people feel their enhanced well-being. So the question right now is, are we going to use more of a head-mounted approach or the parabolic screen? And that's being, we're going to actually, the answers we'll be looking at both configurations. And we don't know at this point. Our suspicion is the wearable, more immersive, maybe more therapeutic, but also more constraining. So definitely for the elderly, this may very well be more. As the elderly generation grows up, maybe the HMD will become more of a norm, although the glasses looked extremely appealing in the last presentation. Impressive. So right now we're looking at the ethics board at University of Toronto. And I think it's important for people working in this field to remember immersive experiences or altered states of consciousness. So be responsible in what you suggest to prescribe. We don't need another Oppenheimer scientist experiment where people end up in this unhelpful state of mind because they're watching whatever is going to be on VR screens that you see people wearing, riding the metro or wherever. So that's pretty well it. The one thing, if I may, I'm going to briefly show up a little clip of one of our, just to give you a better idea of actually what it looks like. Right? So I'm not sure if there's sound. I think there may be no sound. So essentially, this is the Mount Zentis at one of the tallest peak of the German Swiss Alps, and together with a. Is this sound? It's pretty faint. Oh. Okay. So the idea here with the music is we've sort of tried to map out what brainwave states might correspond. It's kind of like a fairy tale that's being told to a person. Everybody had fairy tales as a kid, right? So this is meant to, well, this is the bottom of the camera, but this is essentially meant to draw the person into the experience. And as I said, we have a small glossary of various sunsets and sunrises now that we'll be able to present.
I think we'll have to wrap it up there.
Yeah, so that's the basic concept. Thanks.
Maybe time for just one question? Great.
I suspect you're going to, I don't know, but I suspect you're going to find that the distant, the projection, will actually be more relaxing. There's evidence that, I mean, looking at something that had not displayed because of the accommodation, focus, conflict actually reduces stress. And I've actually done an Everest experience in Walt Disney Imagineering has what they call the dish. It's a big projected environment, beautiful environment, and it was amazing just to stand in there. So everything, the imagery was at a distance. So my eyes were relaxed.
Parabolic screen.
Yeah.
A convex screen.
I'm expecting something that's farther away. The display is farther away from your eyes will actually produce more relaxation. Or at least won't suffer from the conflict of that.
And I think for elder care, this is a very interesting idea because we have a humongous number of elderly people who ultimately get over-medicated and don't have other sedatives, methods that could be helpful to us.
So impressed. It's pretty boring. I'm coming down with the announcements.
Yeah.
Before everybody stays.
Can we thank all the presenters?